The markets are bleeding, and we just had one of the most important FOMC outcomes in a very long time. It may very well be even one of the most important FOMC results in our entire lifetime, especially for crypto, as we can see in the price action lately. The macro environment, as we know, is very important for the crypto industry and really sets the undertone for the market. So although the Fed's rate cut seems like it should have been positive with its 25 base point reduction, the market's reaction nevertheless hinged or reacted to the prediction that set and said for the year 2025, for this next year, also known as the dot plot. So in today's show, we take a deep dive into what the implications were of this big FOMC results and the effect this recent rate cut is going to have on the market to come, so you can make decisions and prepare accordingly. That said, my name is Jessica. I'm so happy you're here today. I'm sorry I couldn't come to you. This week has been really, really hard because we've been traveling internationally and I'm literally on like a completely different time zone and at a mastermind that's extremely brilliant for a project I will be sharing more with you soon that is really set to disrupt the world, I would say. Anyway, without further ado, let us jump into it. Okay, so first off, it's not the most exciting news, but we're going to start off by sharing Bitcoin's recent price. As you can see, as at the time of this video, which is close to end of day Thursday, you can see that Bitcoin is at 97. It's been bleeding in the market. Yesterday, even though I couldn't come to you guys, as I said, the market was trying to rally back up, but people, and most likely traders, were taking profits, and we're going to get into more detail in the rest of today's video as to why. But essentially, with the FOMC's results, it was a sell the news event. So leading up to this big announcement on the Fed's rate cut decision, based on how the market's doing, based on inflation, based on multiple variables they take into account, several traders, it's primarily this chart for many reasons is due to traders. I'm not going to blame it all on them. It's not funny. But if you are a big believer in Bitcoin's long-term purpose as being a financial reserve asset that holds its value and that is going to continue to go up in value despite corrections, as we're seeing on the screen, this is a momentary reaction. Okay, this doesn't speak of the big picture. This doesn't speak of Bitcoin's long-term price action or projections. There's so much data, as I've shared in so many of my recent videos, that really point to the fact that Bitcoin will reach $1 million someday. This cycle alone, by next year, mid to end of next year, Bitcoin is very much so looking at being anywhere between $150 to up to $300 to $400,000 per Bitcoin. So I don't want you to get sidelined by this temporary price action. This is just a reflection of traders selling because they knew a big announcement was coming by the Fed, and they knew that no matter what happens, the market was going to react to it, and they didn't want to take a risk on their profits and their positions, so they took profits. And now the market's bleeding, but you better believe giants in the space and in the world are buying this huge sale on Bitcoin right now. So I hope you can think like that and not be worried. That said, if you can see my screen right now and you can see what the results for Bitcoin's ETF outflows have been, you can see that they're not the best. Yesterday, December 18th, we ended with a negative $84.3 million in new inflows into Bitcoin. So basically, value left Bitcoin. But you have to remember, once again, I'm not a super professional trader. I'm not a certified investor. So please keep that in mind as you're listening to me. But you should also know I have been in crypto and actively investing for the last 5 years. And I come from within the inner circle in the space. And I'm privileged and honored to be in the know-how and hearing these deep conversations by people who know way more than I do. And I do rigorous studying and research pretty much on the daily. So that said, I do know enough to say that these results should not once again be scary to you, because we have to remember that even though institutional funds, right, BlackRock, Fidelity, Bitwise, ARK, Investco, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, even though they are some of the wealthiest people in the world, some of the smartest smart money investors in the world managing these assets, they are nevertheless new to Bitcoin. They are new to crypto. They don't fundamentally understand Bitcoin and crypto the way we do. They are more and more, but you have to remember also that all these values on the screen here represent other people's money. And these institutional funds are responsible for managing other people's money very carefully. So have to respond to them. They're accountable to them. So if the market starts tanking, and this money represents the money of people who don't understand Bitcoin, they don't understand it fundamentally, then the managers of these funds are responsible to act in the best interest for the people for their clients that are investing in their funds and investing in them, right? And trusting in them. So they have to act in a very conservative way. So this to me speaks more of that. It speaks more of inexperience, lack of knowledge, and a responsibility to act an error on the side of error. So that's what this speaks of. But I will say, and this is just my own sense of intuition, because I know the way really smart investors work is they do a lot of investing off the table, or OTC, over the counter, and they don't always report that. So I know for a fact that the managers or the owners and the stakeholders of these companies are in fact buying a lot of Bitcoin off the books. So once again, I'm just sharing what I know and my analysis on what's going on. You, of course, evaluate and always do your own research. Never take what I say for 100% as 100% guaranteed. No one can actually give you 100% guaranteed perspective on the market. So also take that into account as you listen to other KOLs or influencers in the crypto space. Keep in mind that no one knows exactly what's going to happen, and everyone is basing it off of their own experience first and foremost, and the data that they have available to them. So, and one can know everything. So I'm very careful in what I bring you, and more careful with every show, because I do hold myself highly accountable for every word that I speak, because I don't want to influence your decisions in a way that might harm your finances, harm your life, harm your family. But I am sharing what I know with you, okay? And why or why not. So moving on though, looking at how the Ethereum ETF inflows and outflows have been doing. Once again, they also ended the day yesterday, end of business day, in the negative, almost at $80 million negative. And so I hope you don't click away, because this seems like a very negative show. It's not, okay? It's so important to be tuned to what's really happening in the world, and know what forces are causing it, so you know how to navigate. And I'm about to explain a lot of the way the market is working and why we're seeing the price action that we are and what's to come. So, moving on, according to Ali at Ali Charts, is what we are most likely encountering right now is based on historical data, as you can see on my chart here. And as he says, in 2017 and in 2020, during the past bull runs, there has always been a brief correction after the first pump and surge of the bull run, or the parabolic phase of the bull run, which is phase 3. If you watched my past videos, you would know this. And if not, I'm here to help remind you of this. So based on the past bull runs, let us zoom in here together. You would see that the orange line was 2 previous bull runs. I came in right after this bull run, actually. I came into crypto right after it in 2018, going into 2019. So this was before my time, but you can see the orange line represents 2 bull runs ago, 2017. The gray line, I was here for this, is the last bull run in 2020. And the black line here is where we are now. Okay, so what you can see, as I was saying, you see these gray bars going horizontally across the screen. You can see that the first level we had to surpass was this first bar, which is at, for this bull run, 2000, it's $110,000. So it's just to be expected, guys. This was a resistance level that was going to be a hard one psychologically for everyone to break through. And it coincided with the Fed's announcement of cutting or increasing interest rates, which we're going to get into more here in a second. So the markets react to this. So that's that. But that said, if you look at what happens to the rest of the chart historically, you would see that we eventually we break through it. And I've said it in my past videos that during the holidays is a turbulent time, period. It's always a turbulent time. So this is to be expected, but after the holidays, most likely leading into the inauguration of Donald Trump as the United States, what is it, 47th or is it 49th president, there will be some pumpamentalness market, most likely a correction shortly after, as people once again will take profits. It's, what is it? It escapes me right now. But anyway, let's keep moving forward. So once again, it's to be expected. But if you look at the rest of the charts, the way they've played out last bull runs, they always ultimately continued up, right? They go up. So that's what we can expect more of. It's just a turbulent time, guys. It's a bump in the road. I hope you can see it that way. And I hope, as you can see on my screen here, that the bigger picture or the larger forces in the market right now is the fact that more and more Americans, more and more people, this is just the US reflected here in this data and on this chart by Cointelegraph, you could see that 40% of Americans now own crypto. And this is up 30% from last year. So can you only imagine what it's going to be like next year? It's probably at least going to double. I would think so. You know, we have the first American pro-Bitcoin president in all of history. So this is as bullish as it comes, and it's so important for you to remember that. All right, not only that, but we had this phenomenal news also drop. This dropped actually right around the time that the market was at its peak pumping and right before the FOMC or the Fed's announcement of, you know, either of cutting interest rates, basically. But this is actually extremely, extremely bullish news. And this also is a reason that points to the fact that the market, the Bitcoin market, is going to continue to pump. We had the Financial Accounting Standards Board, known as the FASB, just announcing that they are clarifying their rules or updating their rules to make it simpler for companies to hold Bitcoin on their balance sheets. Because previously, or let me finish reading this for you. This is by Roundtable Space. They go on to say that as of December 15th, so this was earlier this week, but I didn't come to you early this week, so I'm trying to give you all the updates in the market. Businesses can finally start reporting Bitcoin at a current relevant value on their accounting sheets. And this is pretty huge because it's going to show real gains and real losses in real time, and not only a loss only accounting. Because in the past, when companies had to report what their Bitcoin holdings were, those that held Bitcoin, they had to report it like at the time bought it. And so whether Bitcoin was higher or lower, that wasn't being reflected. So they weren't able to show how profitable their actions actually were by holding Bitcoin, right? It only kept showing it at a loss because Bitcoin progressively has been going up higher or lower sometimes. And so either way, their accounting wasn't real. So we have Michael Saylor saying here, this is a big win for adoption. And I couldn't agree more. And it's ultimately, as analysts are saying, that they think it's going to push more S&P companies to stack and buy Bitcoin. Because why wouldn't they? now the rules are favorable for them to be holding Bitcoin, and it's only going to encourage more companies to actually buy Bitcoin. So the more people buy Bitcoin, the higher the price goes up, right? It's like a slingshot. Right now, we're like pulling the slingshot back, winding it up, and it's only going to be a matter of time before we have to let go of the slingshot and Bitcoin's price is going to skyrocket. So anyway, this is exciting. And as Roundtable Space wraps it up saying, this coincided with Bitcoin hitting 105, the time of the announcement. So it's just the beginning of FOMO, of the market rallying into Bitcoin. So once again, with the correction that we're seeing in the market, what's happening actually behind the scenes is there's a shift or a transition between weaker hands or traders that were just trying to make like a quick buck or, a few $1,000s with their trades, selling and reacting to the news, and big whales or strong diamond hands coming in to buy what they sold. So it's actually a good thing because the value is going into strong holders' hands. So it's ultimately very, very good. And then here, and this sheds more light on why is ultimately going to win and why the world is ultimately everyone's going to adopt Bitcoin ultimately. And those that don't are going to get left behind. Let me tell you that. And here, listen to this. This is by Jeff Booth, by Bitcoin Teddy. And it's just such a brilliant explanation of Bitcoin and why it matters in the world and why it's ultimately going to win.
If you measure in Bitcoin, so all over the world, if you measure in Bitcoin, prices are falling to the marginal cost of production. The only difference is so all over the world, if you're pricing in whatever fiat instrument, prices are rising. So essentially, Bitcoin is telling you the truth in what's happening in the world. And it doesn't matter if the debt gets destroyed or hyperinflated away. Bitcoin, just being an honest ledger, is imposing that discipline. And you can measure what should be happening in a free market. In other words, prices falling, the marginal cost of production is happening in Bitcoin. So now, Bukele entering into Bitcoin, his bonds are getting upgraded twice, while US bonds are getting downgraded. That system is, and it starts really small in networks. So you have a global network effect. Anybody on Bitcoin, in other words, any person on the planet that knows right now could say, I'm going to move out of a system that is going to constantly steal my wages into a system that doesn't.
Yeah.
And because it's an open monetary network, open decentralized system, anybody on the planet can do that. And what's happening is, as people are starting to see that, they're moving. And then and they're starting to cluster in regions. Clustering, and as there's trading within this on a circular economy on that, it's expanding. And it's expanding all over the world, and some faster than others. And Bitcoin Beach, which was a small experiment, but then when this corner store gets on, another person, and all of a sudden other people see what's happening there, and more people go to El Salvador to see what's happening there. And then it moves into the president saying, wait, we can give economic freedom to our country and step out of this punishing system by adopting Bitcoin. Then the president sees it and it adopts it. And then more people start to see it. Then other countries start to say, wait, what are we doing in this repressive system? We're going to do it. But the point is, and then BlackRock does it, but it doesn't matter who, every single individual on this planet, if they know, can front run the entire everyone else.
Yes.
And that system is for all of us instead of for a small few of us.
Did you catch that? What a beautiful explanation.
So all over the
What a beautiful explanation of why Bitcoin is ultimately going to win, why the world ultimately needs it, and why the game is not over, guys. We are just in the startup, like rumble phase of a rocket taking off. And it's just so important. I just really want you to know that. So that's why I'm coming to you today. But moving on, some more bullish news or larger force at play is the fact that we all know Trump has promised and is already at work in creating the Bitcoin reserve for the nation. And we know that the US is holding, I believe, like several million a large amount of Bitcoin from what it's confiscated from people doing illicit business in Bitcoin. For instance, Ross Ulbricht, which is actually a very sad story, which I won't get into in this video, but the founder of Silk Road, all of his Bitcoin was confiscated, and that's now owned by the United States. And very, very likely Donald Trump will be rolling that value over into the United States Bitcoin reserve. And right now, the market through Polymarket is projecting or believes that there's a 40% chance that Trump will create this or set it up in his first 100 days. Because remember, things take time. Just because he said he gave us all these promises during his campaign doesn't mean that it's going to be able to happen like overnight. And it's very important, I think, for us, and this is why I'm coming to you too, to have reasonable expectations on how long it'll take for him to execute on his promises. But the fact that it doesn't happen overnight doesn't mean he's not going to do it. Nor do I know him as a person, so I can't vouch for him 100%. So that's not what I'm trying to say or convince you of right now. But I do know, based on people that do know him and the research that I have done and all the interviews I've heard him give, and even just thinking through it logically, El Salvador right now has a Bitcoin reserve. There are nations and countries buying Bitcoin like crazy. So if he's first and foremost a businessman that wants to make money and a lot of it and will benefit, like all of us, from the US markets economy rising and improving, then of course he's incentivized to actually follow through on his word. You just have to think about it a little bit and connect the dots to believe in it. But it is important for us to have reasonable expectations on how long it'll take. But it is a race to see who can own and who can buy as much Bitcoin as possible. I believe there's less than like 1 million Bitcoin available left. So the race is on, and he's a competitive person. So I know he's highly incentivized, just logically, to get it set up as soon as possible. Because the race basically is do not let China win. That's more or less. It's China and it's the great other superpowers of the world, like Russia, for instance, as well, that are, like the motivation behind Trump and the United States catching up. So as of now, Polymarket is actually up 15% from the last time that I reported to you. And maybe this data is outdated as of today, but I wanted to share it with you anyway, because it's increased overall since the last time that I came to you with this data. Next, to add to this point, you can hear now in this next video from Europe's MP talking, like basically urging the European Union to catch up, get with the times, or they're going to get left behind. As I was saying earlier in my video as well, because Europe, I love Europe. I used to
Atlantic.
I used to live in Europe. I lived in France for 3 years. So, bah oui, je parle français aussi, to show off a little bit. But anyway, this is love Europe, but they're very, very conservative. They love their history so much and their culture so much and their traditions so much. It's highly bureaucratic and it makes decision making really hard, really, really hard to, it just is, they just move very slow. Just go through so many approvals and it's all like still being things are being faxed and it's all like, it's a little old. They're kind of stuck in time. And so this is the MP in Europe urging Europe to get with the times and not get left behind. It's such a good speech. And I wanted to play it with you because it speaks of the fact that the whole world is waking up. And this is why Bitcoin's price is ultimately going to go up. So once again, part of my argument to you and not being scared during these times, please.
3 years ago, across the Atlantic, the president of El Salvador decided to invest in Bitcoins for his country. At the time, he was ridiculed by the political class and the IMF. He now shows a 100% return, with hundreds of millions of dollars available for his people, for security,
Yes.
and for the sovereignty of his country. The whole world is now getting ready to take advantage of this revolution in decentralized finance. Donald Trump is going to create a strategic reserve of Bitcoin for the United States. Jerome Powell, the chairman of the US Federal Reserve, is now talking about digital gold. Bitcoin is skyrocketing. And what about the European Union? What is the
see?
European Union doing?
Yeah.
It's squandering our money on unbelievable waste. It continues to accumulate tragically inflationary deficits. It insists on regulating, taxing, and holding back. It's time to change the paradigm. It's time to protect our people from inflation and the poor economic choices of our states. It's time to say no to the totalitarian temptations of the European Central Bank, which wants to impose a fully controlled digital euro. We don't want this dystopian world where a European bureaucrat could tomorrow ban us from certain transactions and even kick us out of the banking system with a click, just for something we said on social media or for an opinion that doesn't sit well. It's time to bet on freedom. It's time for our states to invest in Bitcoin to build national strategic reserves. It's time to develop the mining industry. We, the French, hold the cards with our nuclear advantage. Let's stop taxing cryptocurrency holders more and more. Their intelligence, their risks, their sleepless nights that have built their savings.
Yes.
Let's allow them to protect themselves from the crazy spiral you've created. Public deficit that drives money creation, which creates inflation, leading to chaos.
Yes.
Let's dare to be free. Let's stop being afraid of our own shadow. Let's stay true to the ambition of our civilization. Thank you.
What about that? That was sick. I got chills. That was so brilliantly said. I'm so happy that we have voices, within the European Union like hers speaking up for the European Union and the world. So I love it. And then here, okay, just to add to my case, I know I'm stacking it right now, but that was my intention, was to really paint a case for you as to how everything is okay and how this is just a temporary reaction to the FMOC, the Fed's cutting rate, and how it's just normal. It's just normal past market behavior to us hitting new all-time highs. So there will be a, a surge again, okay? Bitcoin will be pumping again. And the reason it will be is, as we listen to right now by Michael Saylor, is because the world nations are printing their own currency, or they're buying Bitcoin with their currency. People are swapping value. And here, let's just take a listen, because Michael Saylor calls it. Actually, okay, I know this is a crazy thing to say, but we'd have to go look at timestamps. But I said it on my show. Like, man, I'd have to go dig it up. But if you watched my past shows, then maybe you heard me say it. But I actually believe I said it before Michael Saylor did, or maybe it was on the same day where I said, like, how crazy will it be when nations can just print their own money to buy Bitcoin, right? But anyway, it doesn't matter. But it does matter.
And the first nation to print money, the first nation currency to buy Bitcoin wins, right? Like, Tom, look what MicroStrategy did. We basically issue our own currency, our stock, and we buy Bitcoin. What happened? We went from $1 billion to $100 billion market cap is what happened. Is it inflation? It's only inflation if you print the currency to invest it, to make a bad investment.
Right.
Right? If you print the currency to buy something that's appreciating faster than your, and the first nation to print money.
You heard it. It's accretion, not inflation. That's a new word. And some more bullish news. We have the Ohio representative, Derek Marin, introducing a bill to establish Ohio's state Bitcoin reserve. So it's continuing to happen on the state level. I think now we're at like 10 states, I believe. I brought you more information on this on a more granular level, like I think last week. But anyway, guys, I do encourage you to go watch my past videos, because only the first part of the video might be outdated when I'm talking about Bitcoin's price of that day. But my logic and reason and data points throughout the shows are all part of this larger pattern we're part of as Bitcoin's making its way to new all-time highs and explaining what's going on in the market. So I do encourage you to go watch past videos. Because there's so much information, so much education in my last videos. And I go into detail on why and the significance of adopting Bitcoin and what that really speaks of the federal level. And then next, we have here by Decrypt, we have amazing news. We have Wyoming Senator Cynthia Lummis, who's been championing Bitcoin for a long time, even before Donald Trump. She was championing Bitcoin and its use and how it should be. I don't remember all the details to her bill, her proposal, but anyway, she has gone on to say in this publication that 2025, this year, will be the year of Bitcoin and digital assets. And it's so true. If you've been following my show or other top KOL and influencers show, you would know this is so true. And she says that she has pledged to work alongside the new crypto czar, David Sachs. He's on the All In podcast show. Excellent, excellent podcast. I'd encourage you to go get your news there and understand on a really big macro level. I explain crypto and Bitcoin and how politics are affecting crypto. It's very much so crypto and Bitcoin focused, but I explain the way larger forces are impacting Bitcoin. But I get a lot of my news and insight also from the All In podcast. But anyway, David Sachs is going to be the new crypto czar and AI czar. So anyway, very, 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 very bullish news. And she's going to be working with him to pass their legislation, as you can, on her, that's right, it was her strategic Bitcoin reserve policy bill, sorry. So very, very exciting. This is now outdated. Okay, so what we see on the screen here is outdated in terms of the voice, the timestamp, because this was actually published before the Fed's announcement, but it doesn't matter. What I wanted to get into was the conclusion that he draws on how the market would react based on the announcement. And we can see, let's just scroll 1 second. So, So here it is. So the bottom line, okay, in the announcement that the Fed made, its interest rate, why it was so important is because there's been a pattern, and I'll share that in a second here. There's been a pattern in how the Fed has been cutting rates, and it's been cutting them a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and a little bit more. So now they've established a pattern, and this basically now allows us to project what they're most likely going to do next year. So that's what Kurt Alt-Richer says here. He says, tomorrow's Fed meeting isn't just about the expected rate cut. It's about how committed the Fed remains to cut rates in 2025, right? So more cuts will be better for stocks and bonds, right? Because it'll make it cheaper, basically, to get them. And then fewer cuts will just basically adjust market expectations, which that didn't happen. So, and this is what he says here too, right? He says, watch the dots closely. He says the will react more to 2025 predictions than to the rate cut itself. So that is what we see happening here. It's not so much the actual rate cut that affected the market, but it's what it speaks of for this next incoming year. Then as you can see here, this is the announcement. The Fed lowered rates by 25 base points to now 4.5, 4.75%. And then you can see this comment here is actually very good and kind of brings to light what's happening. This is by JR. He says, lowering rates this much so far, while it's still not under control, is a short-term win and a potential long-term loss. Seems the market is in control of these decisions, not the Fed. So anyway, that's what the market reacted to, was the long-term implication of what they're going to continue to do this next year. And this is the pattern. So this is by Walter Bloomberg. And you can see here what the pattern has been, right? So in 2024, by the end of this year, the interest rate is at 4.4, and it was previously at 4.4. So the forecast end for 2025, now that it'll be at a 3.9%. 2026, the forecast now is that it will be at 3.4. So anyway, you can see the point in this tweet is that we can see there's been a progression in how much the Fed is cutting all the time. And this is part of a really much larger conversation, because Well, on the one hand, it makes borrowing money, borrowing loans, buying, financial instruments, while it makes it cheaper to do it, it actually sends an international signal because the world also buys and has been securing their finances basically by buying American bonds. But the cheaper it gets, it actually sends an unattractive sign to the global market in disinteresting them from buying more US dollar based bonds. It actually sends a wrong signal. Like if things are too cheap, it kind of tells you maybe it's bad quality, right? So that's sort of like the message that this ultimately sends to the global market. And this is a problem because the US dollar is already inflating and we already have the BRICS nations sort of like association or coalition or alliance wanting to move away from the US dollar. So it only strengthens their case to step away from the US dollar and not want to use the US dollar for business. So that's like the actual huge, like fundamental problem with the Fed continuing to cut interest rates. So moving on, this is the summary of what happened during the Fed's decision to cut rates is basically the Fed cut rates by 25 base points, as I already said. So this brings us to a total of 100 base points that the Fed has cut this last year, or the year like this year, 2024. Not only that, but the Cleveland Fed President Beth Hammack dissented. The Fed shows two cuts, foretells there will be two cuts in this next year, 2025, for a total of 50 base points. Once again, based on past, like the pattern that they've been establishing. Next, the Fed revised by end of 2025 inflation projection. So they revised their projections, right, to be from 2.1% up to 2.5%. And the Fed sees unemployment at 4.3% by the end of 2025, which, mind you, no one has real data on the unemployment rate. We have every reason to believe this is part of a larger conversation, but I've done enough research to know, enough reading to know that these data points are highly debated and questioned because we don't have the sources and the sources are often manipulated. But once again, this is what the Fed is saying and the market reacts based on what the Fed says. So it might as well be true because the whole market reacts to it, right? Because it's only a small group of people that actually question what's actually happening in the world. And if you're here, you're one of those people. So I'm so happy you're here. And I'm definitely one of those people, which is why I'm here. But moving on, according to the conclusions drawn yesterday, the 18th of December, we also have one Fed official seeing no rate cuts next year. So the battle goes on, but that is what happened. And here's a summary of Fed Chair Powell, right? These were the conclusions from his statement. He said, A, inflation is much closer to the 2% Fed target, which, by the way, based on my recent research and reading, there's actually a great book if you want to go do more reading on your own through the holidays. It's called Economy by Kayla Scallon. Very, very good book. She's now being featured on multiple economic discussions and like platforms. And she's actually on Bankless Nations podcast. If you want to go find a deep dive of her sort of like rationale and her data and like her position on the economy. She explains things very, very well. So actually, as part of her book, she explains why there's actually no reason as to why the Fed chooses its target rate of 2% for inflation as good or ideal. It's just a number they made up. So anyway, the point is the Fed thinks that's a good target. And right now, according to Jerome Powell's closing statement, he says we're much closer to their target, 2%. Next, he went on to say that activity in the housing market has been weak. He says wage growth in the United States has eased. Labor market is not a source of inflation pressure. And the Fed can be in reducing interest rates. And inflation expectations remain well anchored. So basically, the Fed pivot is taking another pause. So just letting you know what's been said. I don't believe everything he said. I don't think it's all true. at all, but that is what he said, and that is what the market is reacting to. So I'm just sharing what is happening with you, okay? The reality of what is going on right now, whether it's true or not, okay? And I guess this pumped the US dollar's value in comparison to the other global currencies, which was most likely their agenda, their whole reason and motivation behind this rate cut, because they're trying to protect and like increase the dollar's value. But it's an inflationary inflationary currency, like highly inflationary, like on its way to becoming like the Venezuelan dollar, which is why it's important for you to invest in Bitcoin and not be scared of the recent price action. And if anything, buy some more if you can, because someday there won't be any left and one Bitcoin will be worth over $1 million, guys. Next, this is what happened, right? So I don't have to tell you, but right after his announcement, the market dumped because everyone who put in all these different bets and, different positions in the market decided, hey, I'm going to take profit now. I'm not going to wait any longer because who knows what's going to happen next. And a lot of these people know historical trends because they're in technical analysis. So they understand that the market is going to correct anyway right now based on the previous chart I showed you at the beginning of my show. So they knew this and so they took profits. So that's what's happening. But once again, that only made and gave big whales a wonderful sale to go buy some more Bitcoin, which is great because these people are not going to sell. They're diamond hands, they're whales. And so ultimately we know that now this Bitcoin is in safe hands, which is going to create like a foundation for the rest of this bull run because now these people are not going to sell. So they're going to sustain and support Bitcoin's price. But just a little bit of really lame humor. This is by Wolf of Luxo with a picture of Jerome Powell taking a selfie against the markets tanking in the background, like happy that he was able to hurt the crypto space and actually pump the US dollar. So it doesn't matter. And this is what happened, right? There was over $310 million liquidated in the crypto market in 1 hour yesterday. But the market's going to pump again, so let's not spend too much time on that, but that's what happened, right? And then this is by Kobesi Letters, which is an excellent sort of like research crypto markets journal. I actually don't know exactly too much about them, but they release premises on what's going on in the market based on data. Very, very good. They track the market, right? Bitcoin's inflows, outflows, macro news. And they're saying that this is, once again, I said, this is exactly like what 97% of the participants wanted. But he goes on to say that, or they go on to say that the S&P 500 just posted its largest post-Fed drop since March of 2020. So it seems like it affected the whole market, guys. But this is by VanEck, which is one of the large institutional funds that's also buying Bitcoin right now. And this is the strategy we need to have in mind and think like whales. We need to think like the smartest Bitcoin OGs. We need to think like the smart money that we want to emulate the lives of. We want their portfolios, right? We want to be as successful as possible. And this is their strategy. This is the CEO of VanEck's strategy for 2025. Okay, so this is food for thought and your own contemplation on how to play this next year. So, 1, Bitcoin and gold. Hold or increase exposure to Bitcoin and gold as hedges against inflation, as protection against inflation and fiscal uncertainty supported by long-term trends. So that's strategy number 1, Bitcoin and gold. Buy some. 2, because they're only going up in value while as the rest of the market is tanking. So if you want to secure your assets, you put it into Bitcoin and you put it into gold, although I would say more so Bitcoin. 2, US and fiscal risks and inflation. So regarding inflation and risks in the US. Reduce overexposure to US large cap stocks and rebalance towards inflation hedging strategies like Bitcoin and gold. Okay. AI phase 2. So regarding AI, the AI boom is driving mass electricity demands. While Semis-led AI phase 1, phase 2 shifts the focus beyond tech to energy and infrastructure opportunities. Think nuclear energy, natural gas, and energy infrastructure. So if you want to put your money in what all the AI plays are going to need, because AI is only going to continue to surge. We know AI is going to like take over the world. What does AI need to function? Energy, a lot of energy. So think energy, think nuclear energy, natural gas, think energy infrastructure. Next, regarding India and global opportunities, increase allocations to India and international equities using market dips as strategic entry points. So this last part is like the most important part, okay? Because he's basically saying use market corrections, or when the market dumps, as the time to buy into international equities, or basically into any of these financial recommendations of his that he's doing himself, like buying into Bitcoin and gold. And then he shows this chart, which I really want you guys to take a look at to feel reaffirmed as to why it's not over for Bitcoin, because look at how Bitcoin is outperforming, or has outperformed every other hard asset or valuable asset in the world by leaps and bounds, by like over 100% almost. It's outperformed gold, US stocks, gold stocks, etc., etc., etc. So it is not over for Bitcoin, guys. Bitcoin's on sale right now. That's what I read to Fefe Demni, who's part of the Crypto Banter group. He said it, right? He says we're going to bounce to 107, right? So we're going to go up from here, guys, as part of the Santa rally, as part of the Christmas rally. And then there's going to be some sideways chopping until January 20th. This is the weather forecast for you in crypto. You're welcome. And then here by Fred Krueger, this is so good. But this is what also reaffirms to us that Bitcoin's only going to go up tremendously in value. Fred Krueger is calling for $400,000 Bitcoin, is because right now, based on, okay, so let's just read it, right? So this is his base case, or his prediction for next year. So he believes inflows into Bitcoin will be 175 billion. Why? Based on past purchasing patterns, based on how much they've been purchasing so far, all the institutional funds, we can project that if they just continue on the same projection, they will have bought next year, by the end of next year, $175 billion worth into Bitcoin. And MicroStrategy will have bought 75 billion based on the current purchasing pattern. So that's a total of $250 billion into Bitcoin. And if there's a 25% multiplier, which basically is based off of new retail entering the market. I got this from Ivan on Tech's show. Actually, he broke it down for us. So thank you to Ivan. This number here represents the multiple that economics or economists put on new retail, or new people entering crypto and Bitcoin, and how far their money multiplies throughout the crypto space, because money rolls over from Bitcoin into altcoins, into microcaps, into memes, right? That's like the order it multiplies. So as it does, you can put a 25% multiplier, because then they roll that back into Bitcoin, right? Or ideally they do. So this puts the ending market cap at $8 trillion by the end of 2025, which would bring Bitcoin to a value of $400,000 per Bitcoin. So you have nothing to worry about, guys, once again. And that's why I came to you today. I know I haven't come to you lately, but I really wanted to do deep research too on what's going on, and how, and really think and frankly pray through how I should present this information to you and what I should say to you, so that you're not worried, so you have wonderful holidays, so you can buy Bitcoin right now if that's on sale, like if you can. And if you're going to take any profits, a little bit, guys, don't tank the market. Then you take a little bit leading up to Christmas, just a little bit, if you need the money, and take it in altcoins. Don't take it in Bitcoin. Take it in altcoins. This is just what I would do. Okay. This is what I would tell my mom. It's not actual financial advice, but I'm telling you what I would do. I would take it in altcoins, or even in meme coins that are pumping. You always want to take profits from what's pumping a little bit. That's where you do it. But I wouldn't touch my Bitcoin, because there won't be any left. And then just expect market side trending and a lot of chopping leading up to January 20th, guys. Okay. So that said, guys, it brings me to the end of this video. I love you very much, and I wish you wonderful holidays. And I will be back here tomorrow, God willing. And I will be taking some time off between the holidays, guys. just letting you know, but just know that I am here. I am watching the market, and I will always be back to you as soon as possible. And this next year, after the holidays, I absolutely will be coming to you every day. I'm sorry if I haven't been able to come to you every day. I'm thinking about you all the time and watching the market closely and sharing updates on my Twitter account. So I do encourage you to follow me there and join my Telegram community linked below. If you want to stay connected with me or ever want to ask me a question, you can ask me there, guys. Okay, so I will let you go. Love you. Happy holidays. Ciao.